In this video, I'm going to go over the live view functionality of the new Leica S Type 007. Right now the camera's in front of me, it's on, but as an SLR, the live view function is actually not activated. We're just using it as a regular camera. If I push the live view activation button, which is on the top deck on the right hand side, just to the right of the top LCD, turns the camera live view function on, the mirror goes up, sensor's activated. Here you can see that we've got a live image and basic information. So we've got our shutter speed, aperture, ISO, number of shots remaining on the card, and what kind of card is being used currently, because the camera does support SD and compact flash simultaneously. So here it would actually display which card or both that we're recording to. Around the screen we've got 4 buttons. These are assignable when shooting, and they're actually fixed functionality when we're in the live view mode. If I push any of these 4 buttons, we'll actually see the icons that indicate what they do. So on this side, we've got the menu, zoom, info, and then playback on the upper right here. So if I go into the menu functionality, you'll actually hear that was the mirror closing, mirror coming down and the shutter closing. And this is the full camera menu structure. So just as we would have when we're normally shooting. So do keep in mind that if you go into the menu, it is going to take you out of live view. Right now the camera's just in normal shooting mode. If I half press the shutter, it will take us back to live view without reactivating the button. So it's really not that inconvenient when shooting. If you need to make an adjustment to a mirror up mode or a drive mode or something like that. And likewise, if we push and hold for what our custom functions are, you can also change here. For instance, I have that assigned to ISO. The bottom right, it's assigned to exposure metering. Okay, so I can make some changes here, and as soon as I activate that, pushing the rear thumb dial, it takes me back into the live view. So momentarily we're removed from live view when making menu changes, but it does take us right back. Now I'll show you some of the functionality here. So let's go down to the magnifier, and you'll see the magnify tool. If I push once, I'll be taken to basically a sort of a low-level magnification. It just gets you a little closer, but not too close. If I push once more, let me get my cursor. You'll notice the cursor, I'm moving around with the joystick here on my right-hand thumb. Okay, and I can pretty much move that anywhere in the frame I want. And wherever I move that cursor is actually where the magnify is going to hone in on. So if I push once more, here we'll get down to the 100% view. So right now I'm scrolling around the full live view image at 100%. And if I push and hold the joystick, because it is also a button, you'll see it there on the left-hand side of my screen, and it just turned green. So this is very, very precise, basically what they call spot focus using contrast detect autofocus method right off the sensor. And this can be applied anywhere you like in the frame for precise autofocus exactly at that spot. And you'll see when it turns green, we're locked on and ready to shoot. To get back to the main view, I just push the magnify tool once more. We're back to the main view. Now let's talk about the focus aids, or the live view aids rather. Here on the lower right, and you'll see I activate the info display. The first screen we see has a histogram, and you'll see here the highlight and shadow warning is activated. That's the same icon that was actually on the S006 and the S2. So here I'm going to vary my exposure. I'm in manual mode. Right now we've got a really nice histogram, 1/80th of a second f11. But if I lengthen my shutter speed to 1/25th of a second, you'll now see all the flashing white. So at 1/80th, we're fine. 1/25th, we've got some blinking highlights. And I can actually go in using the zoom function, the magnify, and I can very precisely at 100% actually see precisely what is being blown out. So on the wider view, it looked like this entire column was actually being blown out, but here you can see it's just a few scattered highlights. And by changing my shutter speed, you can actually see those change immediately. And I can go the other way raising up my shutter speed all the way up to a 4,000th, and now you can actually see here just a few of these shadow warnings. It's a pretty broad range of exposure. So now we're back to basically our preferred exposure here, 1/80th. So it's pretty neat that that can actually show you the highlight shadow warnings at 100%. You'll also notice the histogram is based on what we see on screen. So as I'm moving around, the histogram is live and it's changing off of the raw sensor data. So this is also really, really great. Oh, and you'll see there I've got actually a little bit of blown highlight, and I can just tone it back. So this is amazing for landscape work, where you can really see exactly what you're doing exposure-wise. And then for focus, if I toggle that info once more, you'll actually see all this green, which is the focus peaking. You can assign that to different colors. Right now we just have it to the neon green, which doesn't really show up much in nature, so this is a pretty good tool to use. And as we zoom out, you'll see there the focus peaking is active on the entire frame. So as I move the lens, obviously nothing is in focus now. And here we've got almost everything in focus at f11. And I'm using the 45, so it has a pretty good depth of field on it. And if I want to dial in, I'll use my cursor again. And now I'm actually precisely focused and green. You'll notice if it can't focus, let me just pick an area where I think it's going to have trouble, which is this amorphous black area. There's no detail, there's no contrast. Okay, it actually locked on. But normally an area like that might turn red where it can't actually lock focus. So here it's actually locking focus. You might find in a very, very low contrast situation that it may not be able to focus. For instance, let's try the sky. Oh, it focused there too. So it is actually pretty accurate, pretty usable. And then if we cycle back through once more, now we have a grid line display here. And you'll actually see very subtly the green line in the middle. So that's the virtual horizon that I already set. So it'll give you your side to side and up and down in terms of finding level. So that is overlaid over the image. Once more, and then we've got the multi-info display. So this is going to block some of your picture. It's sort of a transparent dark frame. Dark bars are overlaid the top and bottom. Here we can see our exposure meter. The shooting mode is actually continuous in terms of our advanced drive mode. We've got DNG format, how much battery remains, manual focus, auto white balance, metering mode, and the exposure mode I'm in manual. And then all the same information that you've seen on every screen, which is your basic exposure and ISO information as well as your card information. And we push once more, and we're just back to the full view, which is how I normally use the camera. And then using the live view aids, as they're called, or assistants, basically to check focus and to check exposure. If I go and take a photo, you'll see it comes back on the screen very quickly. And here I'm using the top dial. You'll notice zoom is pretty much instantaneous. I can scroll around the image. And those same assistants that I had in live view are active in the playback as well. So if I toggle through, you'll see my highlight shadow warning there and the live histogram. So here you can see I've got tiny little areas of blown highlights. Now, of course, the way I have mine set up, these are actually, I believe, at 242 or 252 illumination rather. So these are going to be perfectly recoverable in post-processing. It's no problem at all. And I can also go here and you'll see the focus peaking. Let me zoom out a little bit. So here, pretty much everything in the frame is in focus. So zooming is very, very easy. And I'm going to do another little trick here. let's say I want to shoot a shot at 1/80th, and then I'll do one more at, say, 360. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in, take it off that view display, and I want to go back to my exposure information. So it's going to be kind of cool here. Let's go back to those boats real quick. And what I'll do is, the other interesting thing the camera does, which I really like, is the thumb wheel on the back. If you just flip it, it actually advances to, either it goes forward or back to previous images. And it keeps the same magnification, and it keeps the same capture assistant on. So I'm able to quickly review and see which shot is either sharpest or which has the correct exposure, and it'll actually keep any zoom level that we set using the front dial. So it's really easy. I've got a one-handed approach. My thumb is on the rear dial. My forefinger is actually on the zoom control, which is the shutter speed dial. So they've really made it very ergonomic in terms of playback. It's super, super fast, as you can see here. There's just no delay, even at 100%, which is really fantastic. The camera just is so responsive. There's no hesitation whatsoever. To get back to live view, I'm just going to half press the shutter. Boom, we're back to live view. Again, no delay. So now, maybe a little more critical, if we want to check focus, I'm going to open this guy up to 2.8. Obviously, the whole thing is blinking, and we're going to see if we can tone that down. Okay, so I've got a 4,000th of a second at 2.8, and let's make sure that that shot is in focus. So I'm going to hit playback real quick. And it is very detailed. You can actually see here just a tiny little blown highlight, but it is capturing from the raw information. So what you see is what you get. And here you can see my railing. This is actually my balcony railing, and it's very, very blurry. So, because we're at 2.8 now. So what I'm going to do is, in live view, I'm going to magnify on that area. So you can see I've got my joystick control cursor right there. And you can see the water going by. What I'm going to do is pull focus here. Let me go up, get some edge detail. And there you can see it's really easy to really nail focus. And I could use my focus peaking as well. So there you can see it's on the parking garage. And as I come forward, now I've got focus on my railing. And I didn't even have to go back to the main view to capture. I just have to take a shot. But it will automatically go back to the magnified view for the next live view activation, which happens just after your review period. So I'm going to go back, review that image. You'll see I've got a nice blurred background, and in my foreground I've got a focused railing, and I can turn off my focus peaking just like that. To control the capture assistance, we can go into the menu, and you'll see here under the camera menu, you'll notice capture assistance. If I go into there, here we can actually control the focus peaking color, red, blue, or green, the exposure clipping settings. So here we have it set up as you see the lower limit. This is going to be your luminance level for black. 2 is a pretty good level. The camera's got incredible shadow range, so even with a blown shadow, you've got plenty of information there. And then the upper limit of 253, again, it's got pretty good headroom, but it is best on this camera to protect your highlights. You do have maybe 1.5 stops of highlight recovery, but you have probably 3 stops of shadow recovery on here. So we'll go back there, and then the grids are also controllable, either 3x3 or 6x4 in terms of grid lines. We can also put on, I didn't demonstrate this, but photo masks. So you can actually set it up for a pano, 1-to-1 for Instagram or square compositions, 16:9 actually for a constant on video preview. But we're going to use off. And then manual focus assist, when we actually turn the lens, similar to what we do on an M camera, it'll actually automatically magnify and bring up the magnified view on live view, so it makes focusing easier. This is something that I prefer to actually activate manually on this camera because it's so easy, so I do leave that alone. But they're found right here on the camera menu, and again, go right back into live view. So that wraps it up for the live view on the S Type 007. I hope you enjoyed.